Huh. Good evening, everybody. Let's start. Now 80 days, more than 80 marks. Now today we are going to start with what? Today we are going to start with environment. Clear? And as far as the preliminary examination of MPPSC is concerned, we can see that a number of questions can be asked from environment. Although in last few examinations they have asked only few questions, so number of questions can be asked, and the questions can range from topics like global warming and climate change, to environmental degradation, to ozone layer depletion, protocols, conventions, environmental events, environmental dates, personalities, institutions, legislations, so all these things. ये सारे पे क्वेश्चन आपको पूछ सकते हैं. Clear? Now, as far as today's class is concerned, now we would be responsible for discussing today the terminology. So let's discuss the terms related to environment. And one by one we'll discuss the terms related to environment, and let's complete those terms first of all. And then we move forward to discuss ozone layer, global warming, climate change, pollution also, then protocols, conventions, then environmental events, etc., etc. Now, when you talk about environment, environment is what? It is not only the physical surrounding in which we live. न केवल वो physical surrounding है जिसमें आप रहते हैं, but it also includes what? It also includes plants, animals, microorganisms, all these things. So basically, it is the surrounding in which you live. But when you talk about biosphere, biosphere is defined as what? It is defined as the organic world. Biosphere is defined as the organic world. It means what? इसका मतलब क्या है? It is that part of the earth where organisms are present. Clear? And when we talk about stretch of biosphere, मान लो ये कहा जाता है कि biosphere का विस्तार कहाँ से है? Now from the surface, it is to a height of about 8 kilometers in the atmosphere. That's the stretch of biosphere in the atmosphere. It includes the lithosphere, तो lithosphere भी उसमें शामिल है, and it includes the hydrosphere even. Hydrosphere, it can go to depth of about 9 kilometers. In lithosphere, it can go to a depth of about 2 kilometers. Now, in lithosphere, it can go to a depth of about 2 kilometers, does not mean that this is hydrosphere. This is that part of lithosphere which is devoid of water. देखो, उसमें क्या क्या शामिल है? उसमें है एटमॉस्फेयर का निचला हिस्सा, lower part of the atmosphere, which can go to a stretch of about 8 kilometers from the surface of the earth. It includes the lithosphere. Lithosphere उसमें, but in lithosphere it can go to a depth of about 2 kilometers, where microorganisms are present. Clear? This is devoid of water. This is not hydrosphere. But in hydrosphere, it can go to a depth of about 9 kilometers. So, biosphere is called as the organic world. It is that part of the earth where we can see organisms are present, and it is a narrow zone of contact between land, water, and air. So, this is how biosphere would be defined. This is how biosphere would be defined. Clear? Right on. Biosphere. Biosphere is referred to as biosphere is referred to as the organic world. Just two lines about these things. Organic world. It is that part of the earth where organisms are present. It is that part of the earth where organisms are present. Where organisms are present. It is a narrow zone of contact between lithosphere, hydrosphere, and atmosphere. Lithosphere, hydrosphere, and atmosphere. So it happens to be a narrow zone of contact between lithosphere, hydrosphere, and atmosphere. Now when we talk about biosphere, बायोस्फीयर इंक्लूड्स 3 कंपोनेंट, 3 कंपोनेंट होते हैं बायोस्फीयर के. जैसे इन्वायरमेंट में आपने देखा कि 2 कंपोनेंट है, फिजिकल कंपोनेंट एंड द बायोटिक कंपोनेंट. सो इन केस ऑफ बायोस्फीयर, और इन्वायरमेंट तो छोड़ दो, that won't be asked, but biosphere mainly consists of what? It consists of 3 components. Now the first component is called as abiotic component. Abiotic component means it includes atmosphere, lithosphere and hydrosphere. These are abiotic component. But temperature, wind, etc., sunlight can be regarded as abiotic component also. But when we talk about biotic components, biotic component includes what? Biotic component includes plants, animals and microorganisms. So this would be called as biotic component. Plants are referred to as autotrophs. Autotrophs means that they are responsible for manufacturing their own food. Plants are referred to as autotrophs and they are primary producers of the food chain. Clear? They would be called as primary producers of the food chain. So primary producers means that they are manufacturing their own food through photosynthesis. Now these would be, plants would be consumed by, suppose, grasshoppers. Clear? Grasshoppers would be consumed by some other animals, and these other animals, suppose plants are consumed by rabbits. So primary consumer. Then rabbits would be consumed by another animal, suppose leopards. Clear? Leopards are consumed by vultures when they die. So we can see primary, secondary consumers would be, tertiary consumers would be there, and a food chain would be constituted. Clear? तो इस तरह से एक फूड चेन बनेगा. तो प्लांट्स कहाँ है बच्चों? प्लांट्स है एट द बॉटम ऑफ द फूड चेन. सो दे वुड बी कॉल्ड एज प्राइमरी प्रोड्यूसर्स ऑफ द फूड चेन. So they would be referred to as autotrophs, and let me see your group also. It is, plants are referred to as autotrophs and they are called as what? They are referred to as primary producers of the food chain. Clear? So they would be referred to as primary producers of the food chain. Fine. Now it is not that only and only plants are responsible for performing photosynthesis. There are many agencies which would be responsible for doing so. There are many agencies which are responsible for performing photosynthesis. And these agencies include what? These agencies include algae, some bacteria, for example, cyanobacteria, modified roots. So number of root system of plants also are responsible for performing photosynthesis. So algae, bacteria, modified roots, they are also responsible for performing photosynthesis. Clear? Also responsible for performing photosynthesis. For example, suppose when you talk about bacteria, a type of bacteria which is called as cyanobacteria performs photosynthesis. Cyanobacteria performs photosynthesis. Then we can see that all algae are responsible for performing photosynthesis. And when we talk about the algae, we can see more than 900 varieties of algae are present on the Indian coast. Near the Indian coast, more than 900 varieties of algae are present. And more than 300 varieties of algae, more than 300 varieties of algae are present exclusively in Tamil Nadu. more than 300 varieties of algae are present exclusively in Tamil Nadu. Clear? Exclusively in Tamil Nadu. Fine. So 300 varieties are present exclusively in Tamil Nadu. More than 300 varieties. Maximum number for any state is Tamil Nadu. Clear? But when we are talking about, suppose, when we talk about animals and microorganisms can be divided into animals and microorganisms can be divided into three types, or among many, let's consider three. They can be divided into many types. One is called as saprophytes. Second is called as parasites. And third is called as what? It is called as scavengers. Saprophytes, parasites and scavengers. Clear? Now saprophytes are responsible for what? Saprophytes are responsible for decomposition of dead plants and animals. So they are responsible for what? They are responsible for decomposition of dead plants and animals. Saprophytes are responsible for decomposition of dead plants and animals. And the end product of such decomposition would be always in a molecular stage, don't have to know for PCS. But saprophytes are responsible for decomposition of dead plants and animals. For example, suppose some fungus can be considered as saprophytes. Some bacteria can be considered as saprophytes. Clear? So saprophytes are responsible for decomposition. When you talk about parasites, we can see parasites derive their nutrition from the host. मच्छरों को देखो बच्चों. So they are parasites because they are responsible for deriving nutrition. खून आपसे ही निकालते हैं वो. So they are responsible for deriving their nutrition from the host, and they would be causing disease to them also. And when we talk about scavengers are responsible for cleaning up the environment. They also are responsible for decomposition, but scavengers are mainly responsible for cleaning up the environment. Clear? Fine. So first of all, you have written what is biosphere. Now, you have to know that there are three components of biosphere. First is what? I revise. First is, write down, there are three components of biosphere. There are three components of biosphere. Just the gist you have to write, otherwise notes would be provided to you. There are three components of biosphere. Abiotic component. And abiotic means non-living. इसका मतलब है non-living component. Abiotic component, which includes lithosphere, hydrosphere, and atmosphere. Clear? And some of the scientists, they have the perception that temperature, wind, sunlight can be also considered as abiotic component. Second, biotic component, which includes plants, animals and microorganisms. Organism, and you know that plants are autotrophs. They are primary producers of the food chain. Everything cannot be written in this class. So plants, they perform photosynthesis, so they are manufacturing their own food. So they would be called as what? They would be called as autotrophs. So they are primary producers of the food chain. Clear? Primary producers of the food chain. Fine. And as far as animals and microorganism is concerned, write down animals and microorganism can be of different types. animals and microorganisms can be of different types, like saprophytes, which are responsible for decomposition of dead plants and animals. Saprophytes, which are responsible for decomposition of dead plants and animals. Parasites, an example I have given you, fungus, some bacteria can be saprophytes. Parasites, and what are parasites? They derive their nutrition from host and would be responsible for causing disease to them. Just now I have discussed the example of mosquito. Write down. They derive nutrition from host. And cause disease to them. And third is what? Scavengers. So what are scavengers responsible for doing? For example, vultures are scavengers. So scavengers are responsible for cleaning up the environment. Write down. Scavengers are responsible for cleaning up the environment. Clear? Fine. And as far as the third component is concerned, the third component is called as what? The third component is called as, of biosphere, is called as energy component. And we can see energy component means what? The third component of biosphere, the energy component. So you can see that plants, when they perform photosynthesis, they are responsible for what? They are responsible for manufacturing their own food, which is organic matter. Plants जब मान लो फोटोसिंथेसिस परफॉर्म करते हैं तो अपना खाना खुद बनाते हैं, तो ये क्या बनाते हैं? ऑर्गेनिक मैटर क्या है? Starch is in the form of polysaccharides, cellulose. So this gets stored in different parts of the plant. Clear? Now when plants would be consumed by, suppose, herbivore and herbivore by carnivore, then what will happen? This organic matter would be passing into the food chain. Clear? So organic matter, when it passes into the food chain, energy also gets transferred. So you can see that energy is transferred in the food chain, governed by the laws of thermodynamics, that energy is neither created nor destroyed. Clear? So when we talk about energy component, we can see the main source of energy in biosphere is the sun. And the transference of energy in the food chain is governed by the laws of thermodynamics, that energy is neither created nor destroyed. Clear? That energy is neither created nor destroyed. Governed by the laws of thermodynamics, that energy is neither created nor destroyed. Write down. Energy component. The main source of energy in biosphere the main source of energy in biosphere is the sun, and the transference of energy in the food chain, is governed by the laws of thermodynamics, and the transference of energy in the food chain is governed by the laws of thermodynamics, that energy is neither created, governed by the laws of thermodynamics, that energy is neither created nor destroyed, that energy is neither created nor destroyed. Clear? लॉज ऑफ थर्मोडायनेमिक्स दैट एनर्जी इज नीदर क्रिएटेड नॉट डिस्ट्रॉयड। लेकिन देखो बच्चों, यहाँ पर क्या है, ये तो ठीक है कि बायोस्फीयर के 3 कंपोनेंट होते हैं, बेसिक पार्ट है, बहुत ज़्यादा मुश्किल भी नहीं है ये, फाइन। लेकिन एक थोड़ा सा इसमें कंटेम्प्रेरी इशू भी पढ़ो साथ में। एंड द कंटेम्प्रेरी इशू इज व्हाट, सिंस यू हैव डिस्कस्ड स्कैवेंजर्स, सो कंटेम्प्रेरी इशू इज द डिक्लाइन इन द नंबर ऑफ वल्चर्स। गिद्ध है ना, गिद्ध, वल्चर्स, उनकी संख्या घट गई है। So why the population of vultures is getting reduced? Fine. Why the population of vultures is getting reduced? Now, when you talk about vultures, we can see in India, the most common type of vulture is what? Gyps vulture. And there are 3 types of gyps vulture. One is called as white-backed vulture. So when you talk about gyps vulture, we can see the most common type of vulture. So we are talking about what? We are talking about diminishing number of vultures. Number of vultures. This is the topic. Why the vultures have vanished. You can see in the notes also that has been put slightly, but good for you. Diminishing number of vultures. Now we can see that the most common type of vulture in India is your gyps vulture. That's the most common. That's the most common. Everything are right on the board. Fine. And common vulture in India. And if you consider, their population was earlier 40 million. See the numbers, 40 million. Today this population has reduced to what? 19,000. Clear? So a big reduction in the population of gyps vulture from 40 million to 19,000. And as far as gyps vulture is concerned, there are 3 varieties of gyps vulture. देखो 3 तरह के gyps vulture है, और मैं इस पॉपुलेशन को बांट भी दूंगा उसमें। फर्स्ट वेराइटी इज कॉल्ड एज व्हाट? इट इज कॉल्ड एज व्हाइट बैक्ड gyps vulture. Gyps vulture. Clear? And their population today is 6,000. So white backed gyps vulture, their population happens to be what? Their population happens to be 2,000 only. Fine. Second is what? Second is long billed. दूसरा जो किस्म है long billed gyps vulture. Their population is 12,000. And third is what? Third is slender billed. Gyps vulture. And their population is what? Their population is 1,000. तो सबसे रेयरेस्ट जिप्स वल्चर में क्या है बच्चों? इफ सपोज द क्वेश्चन इज आस्क्ड, slender billed gyps vulture. If suppose the question is asked, rarest is slender billed gyps vulture. Fine. Then we can see that as far as the reason, now this is the type of vulture and how their numbers have diminished. But when we talk about the reason behind their diminishing number, चलो तो ये तो हो गया तुम्हारा एक चीज कि किस तरह से पॉपुलेशन घटा है और क्या ट्रेंड है. Fine. But when you talk about the reason behind their diminishing number, reason. Now the most common reason behind their diminishing number is use of diclofenac. Diclofenac is an anti-inflammatory drug. And it was used in cattle. Although जो कॉमन पेन किलर हम लोग खाते हैं बच्चों, दैट इज ऑल्सो डाइक्लोफेनिक ओनली, बट देन वी डू नॉट डाई Because the immune system of different organism is different in nature. Our immune system is well developed against diclofenac, but the immune system of vultures is not well developed against diclofenac. So anti-inflammatory drug used in cattle, and you know very well that the vultures consume cattle, dead cattle. So when it consumes dead cattle, we can see diclofenac passes into the food chain. और इससे कैसे, how the death of vultures would be taking place? The death of vultures takes place due to kidney failure. So you can see kidney failure, और in other words उसको हम लोग कहते हैं renal failure भी, kidney को कहते हैं ना renal system, renal failure among vultures would take place. Clear? So that's the main reason. So when you talk about the main reason, this is the main reason for the diminishing number, that's your diclofenac. But there are other reasons also, लेकिन उसके कुछ और भी कारण हैं. One reason is what? One reason is electrocution, बिजली के खंभों से. Clear? Second reason is what? Second reason is, third reason is loss of habitat. Loss of habitat. Loss of habitat means what? Loss of habitat means that देखो महाराष्ट्र में निसर्गा साइक्लोन आया था, ट्रॉपिकल साइक्लोन. क्लियर? और उस ट्रॉपिकल साइक्लोन के कारण जो वल्चर्स के हैबिटाट हैं वो डैमेज्ड. सो यू कैन सी दैट लॉस ऑफ हैबिटाट, और एग्जांपल है इसका निसर्गा ट्रॉपिकल साइक्लोन which struck the coast of Maharashtra in the year 2010. And fourth is what? Use of pesticides. Use of pesticides in carcasses of cattle. Carcasses मतलब dead bodies. So कभी कभी what happens is that we use pesticides in the carcasses of cattle, and this is also responsible for their diminishing number. But if they ask you which is the main reason, so this question is here, I mark the question also. This is your Q2 and here is Q1. So the main reason for their diminishing number is what? The main reason for their diminishing number is diclofenac, although there are other reasons also. There are other reasons also. लेकिन ये याद रखो also कि when you talk about vultures, we can see that as far as the population of vultures is concerned, it reduced drastically. That we know definitely. That we know definitely that the population of vultures have reduced drastically. But as far as vultures is concerned, in vultures, what has happened? Diclofenac has been banned. Not in vultures. Diclofenac has been completely banned for use in animals in India. तो diclofenac पर क्या किया हमने? बैन लगा दिया. And all now diclofenac we use, so it has not been banned for humans. Clear? But it has been banned for use in animals in India. And you can see that we were responsible for using alternatives. So alternatives for diclofenac were used, and it included what? Eclinofenac. Eclinofenac, एक alternative use किया हमने, eclinofenac. Second was nimesulide, ketoprofen. But all these also proved ketoprofen damaging for vultures. Clear? इनसे भी क्या हुआ कि वल्चर की आबादी घटने लगी, बिकॉज ये कन्वर्ट हो जाते हैं डाइक्लोफेनेक में. कीटोप्रोफिन से तो टॉक्सिक लेवल ही बढ़ जाता है. So you can see in your notes also it has been mentioned a new alternate has been used, and this new alternate for diclofenac is called as meloxicam. तो अगर पूछेगा कि which alternate has been used, so the alternate for diclofenac is what? It is meloxicam. Clear? Question number 3. So let's see the questions also. Fine. See the questions. All the questions can be framed. Question 1, question 2, question 3. And then, as far as diclofenac is concerned, diclofenac has been banned. It is used by us only, not among animals we use. But there is also a trend which can be noticed. Vultures are always in a competition with wild dogs. जंगली कुत्तों के साथ वो क्या करते हैं ना, कंपटीशन करते हैं टू फीड अप द डेड कैटल्स. तो अगर मान लो पॉपुलेशन वल्चर्स की बढ़ी तो जंगली कुत्तों की आबादी जो है वो बढ़ जाएगी, क्योंकि उनका फूड रिजर्वायर बढ़ जाएगा. क्लियर. और यही हुआ कि कामरूप डिस्ट्रिक्ट है असम में, वहां पर स्ट्रे डॉग्स की आबादी बढ़ गई. आवारा कुत्ते जो होते हैं ना, उनकी आबादी बढ़ गई. तो उन्हें रोकने के लिए क्या किया, कैटल्स के कैराकेसेस में उन्होंने क्या किया कि पेस्टिसाइड छोड़ा, ताकि कुत्ते उसे खाएंगे और उनकी आबादी जो है वो रुक जाएगी, बढ़ेगी नहीं, बिकॉज डेथ होगा कुत्तों का. लेकिन उसे खाया किसने, वल्चर. एंड दैट्स व्हाई यू कैन सी use of pesticide in carcasses of cattle became one of the reason for their diminishing number. Is that clear? अब देखो एक ट्रेड, तो it means that if the number of vultures decline, the number of wild dogs would enhance because their food reservoir would be enhanced. Leopards को देखो, तेंदुओं को देखो. तेंदुए जो हैं वो छोटे छोटे जानवर खाते हैं, बड़े जानवर को नहीं, औकात नहीं है उनकी खाने की, तो छोटे छोटे जानवर को खाएंगे. और छोटे छोटे जानवर को एक बार नहीं निगल सकते, वो उसके एक पार्ट को खाएंगे और जो रिमेनिंग पार्ट है जिसे उन्होंने मारा है बड़ी मेहनत से, उसे उठाएंगे और पेड़ों के ऊपर छिपा के रख देंगे. इट इज बियॉन्ड द विजिबिलिटी ऑफ वल्चर. इसका मतलब है अगर तेंदुओं की आबादी बढ़ी तो वल्चर की आबादी क्या हो जाएगी, घट जाएगी. क्यों? क्योंकि उनका फूड रिजर्वायर ही घट गया. फाइन. So if suppose if the number of leopards enhance, the number of vultures would reduce. Clear? लेकिन बाघ है, शेर, बाघ, ये सब क्या है, ये जंगल के महाराज हैं. तो what they do is they are responsible for consuming large animals. So they have their own style. They consume a part of it and leave it in the open. Clear? Now this enhances the food reservoir of vultures. तो अगर बाघों की संख्या बढ़ती है, अगर शेरों की संख्या बढ़ती है, तो गिद्धों की संख्या में होगी क्या, बढ़ोतरी. Why? Because their food reservoir would enhance. Is that clear? Fine. And we can see as far as the initiatives are concerned, you can take a screenshot of this. बच्चों इसे जॉट डाउन करते जाना, जो मैं नहीं आपको लिखा रहा हूँ एज डिक्टेशन तो इसमें पॉसिबल ही नहीं है सारी चीज़ों का, बट ये जो मैं बोर्ड पर आपको लिखाते जा रहा हूँ, क्लियर, इसे जॉट डाउन करते जाओगे, इसे लिखते जाओगे छोटी छोटी, ये सारे क्वेश्चंस. क्लियर? फाइन. सो डू दैट नाउ. या स्क्रीनशॉट ले लो इसका, टेक अ स्क्रीनशॉट. आई रिमूव माई सेल्फ फ्रॉम द फ्रेम. फाइन. अब देखो, now the thing is that what initiatives have been taken. Recently one can notice that the number of vultures have enhanced, and they have enhanced in a tiger reserve, and this tiger reserve is called as Valmiki Tiger Reserve, and this is in Bihar. So you can see the number of vultures has enhanced और 150 वल्चर वहां हो गए, तो इनमें बढ़ोतरी हुई, इनकी संख्या बढ़ी. So the government of India launched an action plan for conservation of vultures. So you can see a national action plan for conservation of vultures was launched 2020 to 2025. Now this one question which can be asked. The period of this plan, clear the period of this plan, and you can see that another initiative is what? Another initiative has been taken by MOEFCC. So this is one initiative, and second initiative has been taken by MOEFCC, that is Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, along with Bombay Natural History Society. Bombay Natural History Society. Bombay Natural History Society. And what is their effort? They have established, दोनों ने मिलकर क्या किया है? बॉम्बे नेचुरल हिस्ट्री सोसाइटी क्या है? इट इज द ओल्डेस्ट एनजीओ. ओल्डेस्ट एनजीओ, ये भी एक तरह का क्वेश्चन ही है. ओल्डेस्ट एनजीओ फंक्शनिंग इन इंडिया. फंक्शनिंग इन इंडिया किसके लिए? फॉर कंजर्वेशन ऑफ नेचर. ओल्डेस्ट एनजीओ functioning in India for conservation of nature. For conservation of nature. Clear? Fine. Now they have launched an initiative, and this initiative is for establishment of VCBC. ये VCBC क्या है? VCBC means vulture conservation and breeding centers. Vulture conservation and breeding centers. Clear? और vulture conservation और breeding centers जो है, इनका नाम है what? It is called as जटायु. So vulture conservation and breeding center is referred to as what? It is referred to as जटायु. तो लो, तुम्हारा ये छठा क्वेश्चन हो गया यहाँ से. What is vulture conservation and breeding centers called? So that is referred to as Jatayu. And we can see that these centers have been established at 9 places in India. 9 जगहों पर जटायु की स्थापना की गई है. 9 centers in India. Take a screenshot of this first of all, then I write. These centers have been established at 9 places in India, Jatayu. And the 9 places in India include what? The 9 places in India include, and probably they can ask you, which is the only Jatayu or vulture conservation and breeding center established in Madhya Pradesh. Clear? So it is at Kerwa. Kerwa is in Bhopal. So there are 9 VCBCs altogether, and first is where? First is in Pinjar. Pinjar is in Haryana. Second is where? Second is Raja Bhatkawa. Raja Bhatkawa is in West Bengal. Third is Rani. Rani comes from where? Raja Bhatkawa, and Rani comes from Assam. Fourth is Kerwa. This you have another question. Question number 6th. Kerwa, that's Bhopal, Madhya Pradesh. The only vulture conservation and breeding centers in Madhya Pradesh. Kerwa in Bhopal. Then also we can see Muta. Muta is near Ranchi. Let's complete this list. This list ko complete karo. Muta is near Ranchi. Then also Junagadh, very famous place during the partition. Mahavat Khan, Rasool Khan, Junagadh wanted to join Pakistan. Then Hyderabad in Telangana. देन ऑल्सो नंदन कानन, नंदन कानन एक बहुत ही फेमस जू है बच्चों, एंड दिस इज प्रेजेंट इन उड़ीसा. एंड देन यू हैव ninth one is Baribasi. Baribasi is in Uttar Pradesh. This is the question probably you can get. Kerwa, where is the vulture conservation and breeding center established in India? Clear? So where is the vulture conservation and breeding center established in India? That's your Kerwa in Bhopal. Fine. क्लियर? देखते जाओ क्वेश्चन कैसे कैसे, मेनी क्वेश्चंस कैन बी फ्रेम्ड. नाउ कम टू, अच्छा साथ ही साथ एक चीज और डिस्कस कर देते हैं, जिस मुझे देखने दो बच्चों की कहीं क्वेरीज कोई तो नहीं है. ओके, क्लियर, वेरी गुड. नाउ सी, एक है यहां, यस, यू कैन सी दैट Chambal River, and in the Chambal River, the sand mafias are responsible for digging bore wells, and we can see that the gharials, their breeding sites get disturbed. Clear? So breeding site get disturbed. So what has been done for the Chambal River घड़ियाल्स, बिकॉज अगर मान लो सैंड माफियाज के कारण उनके ब्रीडिंग साइट्स जो हैं वो डिस्टर्ब होते हैं ड्यू टू द सैंड माफियाज इन द चंबल रिवर. घड़ियाल्स आर व्हाट? घड़ियाल्स आर क्रिटिकली इंडेंजर्ड एनिमल्स. सो यू कैन सी दैट घड़ियाल breeding and hatching center has been established in Madhya Pradesh, and Ghadial breeding and hatching center has been established where? It has been established in Morena district of Madhya Pradesh. Morena district of Madhya Pradesh. Ghadial is a critically endangered species, and sand mining in Chambal River is responsible for disturbing their habitat, particularly their breeding and hatching. So what has been done? क्या किया गया है कि घड़ियाल के अंडों को लिया जाता है चंबल रिवर से और उसे मोरेना में क्या किया जाता है, जो घड़ियाल ब्रीडिंग एंड हैचिंग सेंटर्स है, क्लियर, तो वहां पर उनको हैच किया जाता है. And when ghadials attain a sizable length, then they are returned back to the river. Clear? Fine. So this is one, and we can see that as far as the Chambal River is concerned, this river happens to be at the trijunction of 3 states, and these 3 states are what? These 3 states include Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, and also Rajasthan. Fine. So one thing that you have to know is where is Chambal, where is the hatching breeding center of Ghadials established. Write down. अब एक थोड़ा सा यहाँ पर एक और क्वेश्चन कर लो. Ghadials, the issue of Ghadials. इश्यू ऑफ घड़ियाल्स, और चूंकि मध्य प्रदेश से ये जुड़ा हुआ है इसलिए करना जरूरी है बच्चों. घड़ियाल्स, राइट डाउन. द हैबिटाट ऑफ घड़ियाल्स गेट डिस्टर्ब्ड. द हैबिटाट ऑफ, दिस योर नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन. द हैबिटाट ऑफ घड़ियाल गेट्स डिस्टर्ब्ड. हैबिटाट ऑफ घड़ियाल्स गेट्स डिस्टर्ब्ड. Gets disturbed due to the habitat of ghadial gets disturbed due to sand mining, due to sand mining in Chambal River, in Chambal River. And Ghadial is placed under what category? Ghadial is placed under the category of what? It is placed in the category of critically endangered. Right on. Ghadial, according to IUCN, Ghadial, according to IUCN, IUCN stands for International Union for Conservation of Nature, which is responsible for what? Which is responsible for giving the red list. The IUCN has classified Ghadial as critically endangered, has classified Ghadials as critically endangered, or where we have established, so you can see the Ghadial hatching and breeding centers has been established where? In Morena district of Madhya Pradesh. Right down. The Ghadial breeding and hatching center. The Ghadial breeding and hatching center. Breeding and hatching center. Hatching center has been established. In Morena district of Madhya Pradesh. The Ghadial breeding and hatching center has been established in Morena district of Madhya Pradesh. Morena district of Madhya Pradesh. Clear? And what is done here? So the eggs of Ghadials are collected from the Chambal River, and hatching of these eggs takes place at this center. When the eggs attain a sizable length, they are returned back to the river. Right on. The eggs of Ghadials, is collected from the Chambal River. The eggs of Ghadials is collected from the Chambal River. Collected from the Chambal River, and hatching is conducted. When the Ghadials attain a considerable size, when the Ghadials attain a considerable length, they are returned back to the Chambal River. When the Ghadials attain a considerable length, they are returned back to the Chambal River. Is that clear? Fine. So they are returned back to the Chambal River. Now that's about Ghadials. Now see, there are other terms also which we are going to discuss one by one, because discussing terms is also our motive. Fine. So let's discuss these terms. Let me see if you have any queries, boys and girls. Sand mafias are those people who are responsible for sand mining activity illegally in the Chambal River bed. And you can see Chambal River is situated at the tri-junction of three states: Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh and Rajasthan. So here if suppose they ask you, मान लो अगर ये पूछ देते हैं कि घड़ियाल हैचिंग और ब्रीडिंग सेंटर कहाँ है मध्य प्रदेश में, तो ये मोरेना डिस्ट्रिक्ट में है. क्लियर? तो थोड़ा सा याद रखना बच्चों, क्रिटिकली दो चीज़ याद रखना है कि घड़ियाल क्रिटिकली इंडेंजर्ड है IUCN के लिस्ट में, और जो घड़ियाल हैचिंग और ब्रीडिंग सेंटर है वो मोरेना डिस्ट्रिक्ट में है मध्य प्रदेश के. अब कुछ और टर्म्स फिर आते हैं, बीच बीच में क्वेश्चंस देखते जाएंगे, कई सारे क्वेश्चंस हैं, तो ढेर सारे क्वेश्चंस तो यहाँ पर है, लेकिन कुछ और क्वेश्चंस कर लो, एक दो क्वेश्चंस यहाँ पर कर लो पहले, उसके बाद आगे बढ़ते हैं. फाइन, let's discuss some questions and then we move forward. Now, if suppose in examination they ask you that which greenhouse gas, एक तो उन्होंने पूछा भी है ना इस तरह का, which greenhouse gas is present in atmosphere in abundance. which greenhouse gas is present in atmosphere in abundance? The answer would be water vapor. क्योंकि ये नहीं पूछा है ड्यू टू एंथ्रोपोजेनिक एक्टिविटी, लेकिन अगर मान लो ये पूछता है विच ग्रीन हाउस गैस, GHG का मतलब ग्रीन हाउस गैस, इज प्रेजेंट in atmosphere in abundance due to anthropogenic activity. देखो, due to anthropogenic activities, then the answer would be CO2. Clear? Then the answer is CO2. और देखो ऑर्डर अगर है ग्रीन हाउस गैसेस का एंथ्रोपोजेनिक एक्टिविटीज के कारण, ग्रीन हाउस गैसेस, तो सबसे अधिक मात्रा में क्या है बच्चों? CO2, सेकेंड इज मीथेन एंड थर्ड इज व्हाट? नाइट्रस ऑक्साइड. क्लियर? So these are greenhouse gases which are present in abundance in atmosphere due to anthropogenic activity. So these are the greenhouse gases. Fine. Clear? So these are the greenhouse gases which are present in. So first is your which greenhouse gas is present in atmosphere in abundance. लेकिन यहाँ तो देखो, यहाँ उन्होंने तो ये पूछा ही नहीं है ना कि which greenhouse gas is present in atmosphere in abundance due to anthropogenic activity. तो anthropogenic activity जब नहीं है तब water vapor, because water vapor itself is a greenhouse gas. Clear? और अगर पूछता है which greenhouse gas is present in atmosphere in abundance due to anthropogenic activity, then this is your CO2. And if suppose it is asked that anthropogenic activity is responsible for presence of which of greenhouse gases in abundance in atmosphere, then it would be CO2 followed by methane and followed by nitrous oxide. Clear? CO2 followed by methane followed by nitrous oxide. So this is the order that you have to remember. Clear? This is the order that you have to remember. लेकिन अगर मान लो पूछता है ये कि which greenhouse gas stays in atmosphere for a longer period of time, मान लो इसमें पूछ रहा है कि which greenhouse gas stays in atmosphere for a longer period of time. और ऑप्शन आपको दिया है वाटर वेपर, CO2, मीथेन और नाइट्रस ऑक्साइड. ये ऑप्शंस है, 4 ऑप्शंस हैं बच्चों. मुझे बताओ तो चैट बॉक्स में, व्हाट्सएप ग्रुप में आंसर क्या होना चाहिए तुम्हारे अनुसार? व्हाट शुड बी द आंसर? विच ग्रीन हाउस गैस इज प्रेजेंट इन एटमॉस्फेयर, स्टेज इन एटमॉस्फेयर फॉर अ लॉन्गर पीरियड ऑफ टाइम? टेल मी व्हाट वुड बी द आंसर. वाटर वेपर, CO2, मीथेन, नाइट्रस ऑक्साइड. ये बताओ, चलो जल्दी बताओ. टेल मी, आई एम वेटिंग फॉर योर आंसर. I drink water, I wait for your answer. Tell me. Only one person has given me the answer. Tell me. No other attempts. It is CO2. ठीक है? Because you can see that CO2 would be continuing in the atmosphere from 120 to 200 years, and all other are short-lived in atmosphere. Water vapor would be falling down in the form of precipitation. Methane itself is short-lived in atmosphere. So you can see that it is long-lived in atmosphere. So CO2 would be the answer. Now let's deal with, very good, very good.
Water vapor is wrong because it would be in the form it would be short-lived in atmosphere. It would be falling down in the form of precipitation. Clear? So fine. Now let's move forward. ये क्वेश्चंस हो गए, इसके स्क्रीनशॉट लेना तो ले लो और आगे बढ़ते हैं फिर. Let's discuss the other things. See, there's a term which is called as what? Which is called as ecology. As you can see that this comes from two words, oikos plus logos. Oikos means what? Oikos means the habitat. Logos means the study. So basically what? Basically it is the study of habitat. Oikos and logos. Oikos means the habitat and logos means the study. So basically it is the study of habitat. So that's called as what? That's called as ecology. But that's a layman kind of definition. There are mutual interactions taking place in nature. And two types of mutual interactions takes place in nature. दो तरह की mutual interaction होते हैं. एक mutual interaction होता है that is among the biotic component themselves. Among the biotic component themselves. So this is one type of mutual interaction. Second mutual interaction is between the biotic and abiotic component. And these mutual interactions are responsible for what? They are responsible for determining species diversity. किस तरह के species रहेंगे वहां पर. So they are responsible for determining species diversity. They are also responsible for determining abundance of species. कितनी मात्रा में रहेंगे वो. They are also responsible for determining their genetic variation. Clear? So when we talk about ecology, ecology is not only the study of habitat in which an organism lives, but also the study of mutual interactions taking place in nature, which would be of two types, among the biotic component themselves and among the biotic and abiotic component. Clear? Which would be responsible for determining species diversity, then also genetic variation, and also abundance of species. Abundance of species. Is that clear? Fine. So this would be determined. So that you can write also. First thing, write down ecology. Ecology is not only the study of habitat in which ecology is not only the study of habitat in which an organism lives, but also the study of mutual interactions in nature, but also the study of mutual interactions in nature, mutual interactions in nature, mutual interactions in nature between the biotic component themselves, between the biotic component themselves, between the biotic component themselves, and between abiotic and biotic component, and between abiotic and biotic component, which determines species diversity, genetic variation, which determines species diversity, genetic variation. Now genetic variation among these species, and also abundance of species. and also the abundance of species, genetic various and also the abundance of species. Clear? So that's called as ecology. Now see, एक टर्म है जिसे हम लोग कहते हैं क्या, इकोसिस्टम. तो थोड़ा इकोसिस्टम ही देखते हैं. व्हाट एग्जैक्टली इज द मीनिंग ऑफ इकोसिस्टम. देखो बच्चों, जो भी बाहर दिख रहा है आपको वो सिर्फ और सिर्फ बायोस्फीयर ही है, नथिंग बट बायोस्फीयर ओनली. सो वी कैन सी that whatever we look outside is nothing but biosphere. So if we take a fundamental unit of biosphere, उसकी एक मूलभूत इकाई लेते हैं. So if a fundamental unit of biosphere is taken and which consists of three similar component, जिसमें तीन similar component है, abiotic component भी है, biotic component भी है और energy component भी है. So if a fundamental unit of biosphere is taken which consists of three similar component, now that is called as what? That is referred to as ecosystem. Ecosystem. Clear? For example, terrestrial ecosystem, coastal ecosystem. ये सब large ecosystem है. There can be small ecosystem, लेकिन small ecosystem MPPSC के लिए जानना नहीं है. Clear? So ecosystem is what? It is fundamental unit of biosphere, consisting of what? Consisting of three similar components. That is biotic, abiotic or energy component. So that would be called as ecosystem. Right now, ecosystem is fundamental unit of biosphere. Fundamental unit of biosphere. Of biosphere. Consisting of three similar components. Consisting of three similar components. Three similar components. That is abiotic, biotic and energy component. Don't have to write that. Three similar components, understood. Fine. And examples are many. Examples include, for example, terrestrial ecosystem या फिर coastal ecosystem. So all these are examples of ecosystem. Fine. So all these are examples of ecosystem. Now there is a term that also needs to be covered up, and this term is called as what? It is called as community. देखो, community. मान लो this is your ecosystem, and we have said that ecosystem consists of biotic component, abiotic component and energy component. जिस तरह से बायोस्फीयर में तीन कंपोनेंट है, उसी तरह से इकोसिस्टम में भी तीन कंपोनेंट है, बायोटिक, अबायोटिक और एनर्जी कंपोनेंट. क्लियर? नाउ सिर्फ बायोटिक कंपोनेंट को अगर लो एंड मेक अ सब डिविजन ऑफ दिस बायोटिक कंपोनेंट, सो अ बायोटिक सब डिविजन ऑफ द इकोसिस्टम, अ बायोटिक सब डिविजन ऑफ द इकोसिस्टम is referred to as what? It is referred to as community. A biotic subdivision of the ecosystem is referred to as community. Clear? And we can see that within an ecosystem there can be different levels of community. मान लो कि forest ecosystem है. Now there would be a community which would be present on the surface. And there would be a community which would be present at the canopy of trees. तो हो सकता है कि trees के ऊपर भी एक community हो, एक community हो जो surface में हो, एक community है जो water bodies में है. मान लो lion है, tiger है और deers हैं, तो they are forming a community which would be present on the surface. लेकिन vultures हैं, eagles हैं, owl हैं. Now this is a type of community which is present at the canopy of trees. Canopy of trees. So within an ecosystem there can be different levels of community, and the members of the community, they perform certain functions. Fine. And then we'll discuss that, but first of all write down community. Community. A biotic subdivision of the ecosystem, not abiotic, separate. A biotic subdivision of the ecosystem. subdivision of the ecosystem is referred to as a biotic subdivision of the ecosystem is referred to as community. A biotic subdivision of the ecosystem is referred to as community. Clear? So it's called as community. And we can see that within an ecosystem there would be different levels of community. Write down, within an ecosystem, there would be different levels of community. There would be different levels of community. Different levels of community. देखो, एक यहाँ है, एक यहाँ है, एक वाटर बॉडी में है, तो अलग अलग लेवल है कम्युनिटी का. फॉरेस्ट इकोसिस्टम में, within an ecosystem there would be different levels of community. The members of community perform certain functions. The members of community perform certain functions. अब देखो, what happens when you talk about each and every member of the community? The members of community would be performing certain functions. अपने रख रखाव के लिए, अपने maintenance के लिए. Now these functions collectively would be called as niche. Clear? These functions are collectively called as niche. And there are three types of niche also. मान लो कि पर्पस है फूड एक्यूमुलेशन. चिड़ियों को देखो, छोटे छोटे दाने लेकर आते हैं अपने बच्चों के लिए. या अगर चींटियों को देखो तो छोटे छोटे फूड स्टफ्स लेकर वो एक रो में चलते हैं. So this is what? This is nothing but food accumulation. Now this type of niche would be called as trophic niche. But if the function is procreation, procreation का मतलब है generation of new ones, then it would be called as what? It would be referred to as reproductive niche. But if suppose the function is, what the function is? Nothing but establishment of dwelling place or maintenance of dwelling place, जहाँ रह रहे हो. For example, suppose you can see birds collecting small sticks and responsible for building their nest. So this kind of niche would be called as what? It would be called as habitat niche. So there are three different kinds of niche. Right now, the members of community perform certain functions. The members of community perform certain functions. For their maintenance, which is collectively called as niche. The members of community perform certain functions for their maintenance, which is collectively called as niche. If the function is food accumulation, मान लो कि ये है function, then it is called as trophic niche. If the function is food accumulation, then it is called as trophic niche. If the function is procreation means generation of new ones. If the function is procreation, it is referred to as reproductive niche. And if the function is maintenance of dwelling place, it is referred to as habitat niche. Maintenance of dwelling place, it is referred to as habitat niche. Clear? So you can see there are three types of niche. One is trophic niche, second is reproductive niche, and third is called as habitat niche. अब देखो, suppose this happens to be one type of ecosystem. मान लो ये एक ecosystem है. This is ecosystem number 1. And this is another ecosystem number 2.
सो द डीमार्केशन जोन बिटवीन, जो डीमार्केशन जोन है ना इकोसिस्टम के बीच में, नाउ द डीमार्केशन जोन बिटवीन टू इकोसिस्टम वुड बी कॉल्ड एज व्हाट? इट वुड बी कॉल्ड एज इकोटोन. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, अगर मान लो दिस इज योर ओशंस, this is oceans and this is the territory. So this area, the mangrove area, would be called as what? It would be called as ecotone. या मान लो कि this is the river and this joins the sea. So the estuary would be called as what? The estuary would be called as ecotone. Clear? So we can see that ecotone is what? Ecotone would be called as what? Ecotone would be called as a transitional zone. Ecotone पहले तो है कि demarcation zone है, पहली बात. दूसरी बात क्या है? It is a transitional zone. Transitional zone क्यों कहा जा रहा है? Because the characteristic of one ecosystem is reducing and that of the other would be enhancing. जैसे mangrove forest है, तो mangrove में देखो तो soil तो saline है. So the characteristic is maintained of the saline water. So the characteristic of one ecosystem is reducing and that of the other would be enhancing. And then we can see not only this, since the margin of two ecosystem in this area is overlapping, ये मान लो एक ecosystem है, ये दूसरा ecosystem है. Since the margin of two ecosystem in this area is overlapping, the localized condition in this area is favorable for development of a large number of species. And this phenomena is called as what? This phenomena is called as edge effect. इस phenomena को क्या कहेंगे? इस phenomena को कहेंगे edge effect. Fine. Because the localized condition of this area is favorable for development of a large number of species. तो इसे कहेंगे edge effect. तो ये थोड़ा सा जानना है. और इसे भी कहा जाता है zone of competition. Zone of competition क्यों कहेंगे बच्चों? Why? Because in this area the members of two ecosystem would be struggling hard for survival. तो ये है थोड़ा सा इकोटोन के बारे में आपको जानकारी जाननी. क्लियर? और कल हम लोग थोड़ा सा बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व्स, बायोडाइवर्सिटी हॉटस्पॉट, बायोडाइवर्सिटी मेगा हॉटस्पॉट्स, ये सब करेंगे. क्लियर? फाइन. राइट डाउन. इट इज द डीमार्केशन जोन बिटवीन टू इकोसिस्टम. तो पहला शब्द क्या है जानना? इट इज अ डीमार्केशन जोन बिटवीन टू इकोसिस्टम. पहला कैरेक्टरिस्टिक है इसका, डीमार्केशन जोन बिटवीन टू इकोसिस्टम. सिर्फ ऑब्जेक्टिव टाइप्स को देखो. इट इज ऑल्सो ट्रांजिशनल जोन. इट इज ऑल्सो अ ट्रांजिशनल जोन. Transitional zone. And why so? Because the characteristic of one ecosystem is reducing and that of the other would be enhancing. It is also transitional zone. It is also zone of competition. It is also a zone of competition. A zone of competition क्यों कहा जा रहा है बच्चों? Zone of competition, it is said, why? Because the members of two ecosystem would be struggling hard here for their survival, would be fighting for their survival. Clear? And we can see that in this area, since the margin of two ecosystem is overlapping, that's why we can see that the localized condition in this area is favorable for development of a large number of species. So this phenomena is called as edge effect. Write down the localized condition in this area. The localized condition in this area. Localized condition in this area is favorable for development of. The localized condition in this area is favorable for development of. Favorable for development of a large number of species. Favorable for development of a large number of species. तो लार्ज नंबर ऑफ स्पीशीज, तो इसका मतलब है बायोडाइवर्सिटी बहुत ज्यादा. दिस फिनोमेना इज कॉल्ड एज एज इफेक्ट. दिस फिनोमेना इज कॉल्ड एज एज इफेक्ट. तो क्या कहते हैं देखो, तो ये सारे इसके कैरेक्टरिस्टिक हैं. क्या क्या कैरेक्टरिस्टिक हैं आप देखो बच्चों. फर्स्ट इज व्हाट, एंड लेट मी सी योर क्वेरीज आल्सो. फर्स्ट इज व्हाट, दैट इट इज अ डिमार्केशन जोन. फाइन. सेकेंड इज व्हाट, that this is a zone of transitional zone. Why? The characteristic of one ecosystem is reducing and that of the other would be enhancing. Third is what? It is a zone of competition. Zone of competition. And fourth, in this area, the biodiversity is immense. Why? Because the margin of two ecosystem is overlapping with each other. So we can see this phenomena is called as edge effect. With these words, I end up here. Tomorrow also, in a similar manner, there will be a lot of questions, and also we would be discussing all the objective type topics related to your preliminary examination. Today we have discussed the chambal, ghadiyals, and also we have discussed Kerwa related to Madhya Pradesh. Tomorrow some other things also. Fine. Thank you so much.